For 55-year-old Kenneth "Kenny" Coons, July 5th seemed like any other day. He exited the trailer next to his family's residence and proceeded to greet them in the house. Upon entering, he was confronted with a gruesome sight. His entire family had been fatally shot and left to perish on the floor. Kenneth was appalled by the discovery and hurried to the nearest phone to alert the authorities. In the ensuing weeks, investigators grappled with identifying the perpetrator, leaving the community pondering who would target and kill this close-knit family and what the motive could be. The town of Bern, located in central Wisconsin, is part of the Wausau metropolitan area. As of the year 2000, the population of Bern was a modest 562 residents. With a population density of 16.5 individuals per square mile, many families enjoy the advantage of residing on expansive multi-acre properties. The area is rich in parks, golf courses, and national parks, making it a serene environment for families seeking a peaceful lifestyle. This was the belief held by the Kunz family, who made Bern their home. The family included 70-year-old Helen Kuntz, her sons Kenneth, aged 55, and Randy, aged 30, along with Helen's siblings, Clarence, 78, Irene, 81, and Marie, 72. They were well known in the community for their exceptionally close ties, with some locals suggesting their bond was perhaps too intense. The Kunz family lived in a weathered gray house situated on a 108-acre property, approximately 6 miles from the town center. Visitors to their home often described it as cluttered and filled with various items. Lacking indoor plumbing, the family relied on a wood-burning stove for cooking and heating. Except for Kenneth, who opted for a trailer next to the house for a bit of privacy, the rest of the family resided in the disordered home. Despite its dilapidated state, the Kunz household was relatively affluent, having accumulated over $20,000 in cash stored throughout the residence. The family was perceived as somewhat eccentric, as they consistently paid their bills in cash and preferred a life of seclusion. They typically wore hand-me-down clothing passed down through the family and maintained a notably close relationship. Kenneth and Randy frequently took their mother, Helen, into town for grocery shopping and bill payments. According to an article in the Post-Crescent, the Kunz family often felt like outsiders in their own community. Some members of the community adopted a more compassionate stance towards the Kunz, yet the majority viewed them as peculiar and strange. The Kunzes might have remained unnoticed had it not been for a fateful July 4th evening. On July 5th, 1987, Kenneth awoke in his trailer, nursing a headache. He had spent the previous night at the cheese factory where he was employed before enjoying drinks with friends. Celebrating the holiday, Kenneth had indulged in a few extra beers, a decision he would come to regret the following morning. After preparing himself for the day, Kenneth cautiously stepped out of his trailer and made his way to the main house. He anticipated a warm greeting from his mother, uncle, and aunts, but instead he was confronted with a scene that would forever haunt him. As he opened the front door, Kenneth called out for his mother, but silence greeted him. He shut the door behind him and continued to call her name. A chill ran down his spine as he took a few more steps into the entryway. There lay his aunt, Marie, lifeless on the floor, surrounded by a pool of her own blood. She had been shot in the head with a .22 caliber weapon. In a state of shock, Kenneth wandered through the house, hoping this was merely a nightmare from which he would awaken. Upon reaching the kitchen, he discovered Randy, also shot, and left to bleed out. Kenneth rushed to him, attempting to revive him, but it was too late. Realizing he needed to locate the rest of his family, Kenneth began to move cautiously from room to room, acutely aware of the possibility that the assailant might still be within the house, fearing he could meet a similar fate. When he reached the bedrooms of Clarence and Irene, he found both of their bodies, each having suffered the same fate from a .22 caliber gun. Clarence was in his bedroom, while Irene was slumped in a chair. It became evident to Kenneth that this had been a sudden attack, leaving his family with no opportunity to defend themselves or escape. A sense of unease enveloped Kenneth as he hurried down the stairs and out the door. He dashed to the neighboring mansion, pounding on the grand entrance. Once the door swung open, a flurry of words spilled from Kenneth's lips as he requested the use of their telephone. Panic and dread had seized control of Kenneth's being, with adrenaline coursing through his veins. At last, he managed to convey his message to the neighbor, and a call to the authorities was promptly made. In a matter of moments, police cars with flashing lights and blaring sirens descended upon the 108-acre Kunz estate. Investigators briefed themselves on the unfolding situation, marking the commencement of the official inquiry. Kenneth was the primary individual sought after by the Marathon County Sheriff's Office. He was the one who had stumbled upon his family's lifeless bodies, the sole survivor. In the initial interrogations, Kenneth expressed his concern for his missing mother, Helen Kuntz. While Kenneth fretted over his mother's whereabouts, investigators couldn't help but cast a suspicious eye her way in the early stages of the investigation. A motive had yet to be discerned, and investigators were prepared to explore every possible lead. As reported by UPI in July 1987, the Marathon County investigators asserted that Helen Kuntz's status as a victim or suspect would remain unknown until her discovery. Could Helen truly have harbored the motivation to annihilate her entire family, sparing only her son? Was it plausible that she had taken her own life thereafter? Might she have absconded under a new identity? These burning inquiries were temporarily set aside as investigators frantically endeavored to unravel the events of that fateful July 4th evening. Forensic specialists meticulously combed through the Kunz residence, detailing the abysmal conditions within. Their accounts painted a picture of a home overrun by filth and neglect, devoid of modern conveniences like plumbing or a proper kitchen. The family had resided in squalor, hoarding refuse and allowing grime to accumulate unchecked. This situation left investigators utterly perplexed. The family not only operated a farm that generated a respectable income, but they also had over $20,000 in cash discreetly hidden throughout their residence. It became evident to the authorities that the perpetrator of the Kunz family's demise was oblivious to the significant sum of money that lay within reach. When adjusted for inflation, that amount would equate to over $52,000 in today's economy. Despite their living conditions, which could be characterized as impoverished and dilapidated, the family possessed a television and a video player. A rumor quickly spread through the town, further alienating the family from the community. Gail Weiler, the proprietor of a local hardware store, revealed to Marathon County investigators that in the weeks leading up to the tragic event, Helen had visited her store to purchase .22 caliber ammunition. Helen asserted that the bullets were intended for her sons, Randy and Keith, to use while hunting birds on their expansive property. However, this was not the most intriguing detail she shared. Gail informed investigators that Helen had expressed her discontent regarding her family's habit of watching explicit films together on the video player. This claim was corroborated by the collection of adult material found within the Kunz household. Alarmingly, this was not the first instance of rumors regarding inappropriate sexual conduct and incest surrounding the family. Investigators from Marathon County uncovered a historical case file from the 1930s, which detailed accusations against a 40-year-old neighbor who was convicted of assaulting and impregnating a then 15-year-old Helen. Furthermore, Kenneth harbored suspicions that his biological father was none other than Helen's brother, Clarence Kunz. The veracity of these allegations remains uncertain, as the family, particularly Helen's mother, consistently refuted them. Amidst the swirling rumors, additional gossip emerged, with townsfolk believing that Helen and her son, Randy, shared a bed at night, intensifying the already rampant incest allegations against the Kunz family. Reports indicated that siblings Clarence, Marie, and Irene shared the living room for sleeping. Whispers of incest had lingered through the generations, and the townsfolk now pondered if those unsettling relationships had reached a climax. Speculation ran rampant. Meanwhile, Helen remained elusive. The residents of Barn rallied behind Kenneth Kunz, albeit from a cautious distance. Despite the family's peculiarities and the unsettling rumors surrounding them, the community felt the weight of the tragedy. In the aftermath of Helen's mysterious vanishing, they united to create T-shirts, buttons, and posters emblazoned with the poignant question, "Where is Helen?" Appeals for information were fervently made, and vigilance was heightened for any sign of her. Investigators were aware that Helen had last been seen at a fireworks celebration in Athens, Wisconsin, on July 4, 1987, just a day prior to the horrific events. Kenneth, occupied with work and later at a bar, could not provide insights into his mother's disappearance. Discussions arose regarding the possibility of a diminutive 70-year-old woman standing at 5 feet 3 inches being capable of annihilating her entire family. As summer gracefully yielded to autumn, thoughts of the Kunz family faded into the background and life in Bern resumed its usual rhythm. Yet the search for Helen and the individual responsible for the tragic loss of her family persisted. Just as the enigma deepened, authorities stumbled upon a perplexing revelation. 9 months post-massacre, in April 1988, Helen's remains were unearthed in a marshland in Taylor County, Wisconsin. Like her family, she had met a grim fate, shot in the head with a .22 caliber bullet. Following the discovery, an autopsy was conducted, yet any further evidence unearthed has remained undisclosed. The investigation faced a temporary standstill, as Helen, once presumed to be the perpetrator, had suffered the same tragic end as her family. It is quite astonishing that the tragic shooting in 1987 was not the first calamity to befall the Kunz family. In December of 1905, Helen's grandmother, Marie Kunz, was discovered brutally murdered within the confines of her home in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. The investigation was swift, culminating in a shocking revelation. Wenzel Kunz, Marie's own son, was charged with her heinous murder. In a fit of rage, Wenzel had bludgeoned his mother while she lay peacefully in her bed, leaving her lifeless body for the family to find. During the ensuing trial, Wenzel was deemed insane and subsequently committed to a mental institution, where, coincidentally, his brother was also a patient. By 1906, the Kunz family had significantly diminished in number, and in 1914, the remaining members sought a fresh start in Marathon County, settling on a farm that was purported to be bountiful. However, upon arrival, they were met with the harsh reality that the promised land was merely a desolate expanse of tree stumps and refuse. Despite their struggles, the Kunzes eventually carved out a reputation across Bern and Marathon County. Yet investigators found themselves perplexed, unable to ascertain a motive for the earlier tragedy. A substantial sum of over $20,000 was discovered within the family home, effectively ruling out robbery as a potential motive. Then, in January 1988, a new twist emerged in this already intricate case. Investigators uncovered fresh evidence that pointed to a suspect, Christopher Jacobs III, hailing from Athens, Wisconsin, not far from Bern. It was revealed that just prior to the murders, the 22-year-old Christopher had purchased a vehicle from the Kunzes. He was among a rare few who had ever engaged with this enigmatic family, as many chose to keep their distance, deterred by rumors or the family's reclusive nature. The investigators found it highly suspicious that Christopher had any interaction with such an unusual family and decided to delve deeper into the matter. During a meticulous search of his estate in Medford, investigators uncovered a vehicle, 2 .22 caliber rifles, an assortment of .22 caliber ammunition, spent shell casings, and newspaper articles detailing the Kunzes' murders. A forensic analysis of the car retrieved from Christopher's property suggested it had left tire impressions matching those found at the Coons' crime scene. A motion submitted to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals revealed that law enforcement had taken plaster casts of tire tracks and footprints from the vicinity of the Kuntz residence, situated approximately a quarter of a mile from the home. In January 1988, detectives focused their attention on Christopher Jacobs's vehicle to determine if its tires could have produced the tracks discovered in the Kunz's garden. Although Christopher was arrested in January 1988, he was released without charges just days later. Compounding the situation, investigators faced significant challenges in gathering evidence while he roamed freely for months. It wasn't until August 1988 that the Marathon County Sheriff's Office returned to Christopher's residence, leading to his rearrest and subsequent charges, with the case set to proceed to trial. In that same month, Jacobs faced 5 counts of being a party to murder, marking the beginning of one of Marathon County's most protracted investigations. On a balmy August morning, 22-year-old Christopher Jacobs awoke in a prison cell, gradually acclimating to a life dictated by strict schedules for eating, sleeping, and movement. Throughout this ordeal, Christopher steadfastly proclaimed his innocence and engaged legal counsel. His defense team recognized that the evidence against him was largely circumstantial. The murder weapon remained elusive, and the tire tracks along with his personal .22 caliber firearm were tenuous at best. For months, Christopher's attorneys diligently prepared their defense, culminating in the commencement of the trial in October 1989. Crocker Stevenson, a distinguished journalist from the esteemed Milwaukee Journal, had been meticulously tracking the case's every development. When the court dates were finally unveiled to the public eye, he ensured to secure himself a front-row seat. Reflecting on the events to the renowned Post-Crescent, he recounted, "They attempted to mask Christopher's true nature by dressing him in a suit and trimming his unruly hair. However, his roots as a thug ran deep, stemming from a family that viewed the Kunzes as easy prey. Given the tight-knit nature of the town of Bern and the residents of Marathon County, a jury was imported from the neighboring Brown County to guarantee Christopher a just trial. For weeks on end, a plethora of evidence was meticulously presented. Witnesses and experts underwent rigorous cross-examinations, and every aspect of the investigation was meticulously scrutinized. A harrowing video showcasing the crime scene was unveiled to the jury, leaving most members utterly repulsed and unable to watch as the Kunz family's lifeless bodies and gruesome wounds were laid bare on screen. Tire imprints from Christopher's vehicle at the crime scene were meticulously displayed to the jury, alongside testimonies indicating his close interactions with the family. The remaining Kunz family and their loyal supporters held their breath as the jury delivered their final verdict. Christopher Jacobs stood on the precipice of a lengthy prison sentence for the brutal murder of an entire family. However, in a jaw-dropping turn of events, after a mere 10 hours of deliberation, the jury shockingly acquitted him of all charges.
As to count number 5, not guilty of murder in the first degree of penalty.
The courtroom erupted into a cacophony of cries and shouts, leaving Christopher gasping in disbelief as he was finally granted his freedom. Christopher may have walked out of the courtroom a free man following the verdict on October 28, 1989, but his newfound liberty would soon be short-lived. In 1993, his former flame, Stacy Weiss, reignited the flames of this convoluted and perplexing case. Paying a visit to the Marathon County Sheriff's Office, she specifically requested to speak with Lieutenant Randall Honish. As Lieutenant Honish pressed play on the tape recorder, he gazed at Stacy in sheer disbelief as she began to divulge shocking revelations. Stacy recounted to Lieutenant Honish that in 1991 she and Christopher were in a relationship and that he had admitted to the murder of the Kunz family. When she questioned his motive, Christopher responded, "To prove to myself that I was a man." Stacy claimed that Christopher had visited the Coons residence on the evening of July 4th, 1987, where he was greeted by Randy Coons. The two had established a good relationship after Christopher purchased a car from Randy, and Randy warmly welcomed him into their home. According to Stacy, an argument ensued between the two, during which Christopher pulled out a .22 caliber gun and shot Randy. Christopher then proceeded to move through the house, methodically eliminating the rest of the family by shooting them at close range in the head. For reasons unknown, Christopher decided to tie up Helen and take her to the swamp, where he shot her and left her body. When he was confronted by the police, Christopher was taken aback by this revelation from his ex-girlfriend, claiming that she was simply a scorned lover seeking revenge. Unfortunately for Christopher, the Marathon County Sheriff's Office believed Stacy's account, and Christopher was once again arrested, this time charged with the kidnapping and murder of Helen Kuntz. It would be 5 years before Christopher Jacobs would face trial, and investigators were relieved they had taken action when they did. According to reports, the statute of limitations was set to expire just hours before Christopher was arrested for the second time. On June 8, 1998, Christopher Jacobs III found himself in court, once again, awaiting his fate. Regrettably, Christopher's luck had run out, and after only 4 hours of deliberation, he was found guilty of kidnapping and falsely imprisoning Helen Kuntz. Christopher Jacobs was sentenced to serve 31 years in prison, with a parole date scheduled for February 2020. On February 4, 2020, Christopher, now 53-year-old, was released from the Columbia Correction Institution after being granted parole. In an unexpected turn of events, Christopher found himself reincarcerated on February 5, 2020, at the Marathon County Jail. Intriguingly, he had requested this return to custody, expressing to the authorities his disinterest in parole and a preference to complete his sentence at the Columbia Correction Institution. Despite this, he maintained his innocence in conversations with the media, alleging that law enforcement had pressured his former girlfriend, Stacy, into fabricating a story about his supposed confession. In a statement to the Warsaw Daily Herald, he remarked, "Marathon County may be attempting to ensnare me with unfounded charges to rationalize my wrongful imprisonment. Following my acquittals in 1989, I was advised to leave Wisconsin due to fears of police retaliation." Christopher Jacobs III chose to return to jail in June 2020, willingly serving the final 14 months of his sentence behind bars. In the community of Bayern, many remain skeptical of the notion that Christopher was responsible for the tragic deaths of the Kuntz family. The dominant theory suggests that the perpetrator may have been someone within the family itself. However, with nearly all of them now deceased, the likelihood of uncovering the truth seems increasingly remote. On October 11, 1991, Linda Little, a waitress at a restaurant in Daytona Beach, Florida, inexplicably disappeared after finishing her shift. Her case remained a mystery for several years until the individual responsible, while in prison, experienced a profound moment of spiritual insight that resulted in a shocking confession. What really happened to Linda? What route did she take after leaving work that night? Was she being followed, or did a tragic twist of fate lead her to an unfortunate situation? In today's discussion, we will delve into the captivating case set in Daytona Beach, a city celebrated for its pristine white sandy beaches and the iconic International Speedway, which draws racing aficionados from far and wide. The city features a variety of resorts and attractions, along with picturesque ocean views that entice millions of tourists each year. Linda entered the world on October 29, 1947, in North Carolina. Details about her early years are sparse, but it is known that she was raised in a loving household alongside 3 siblings. Her younger sister fondly recalls Linda as a vibrant individual, someone who brought joy to those around her. At the age of 19, Linda welcomed her first and only child into the world. The identity of the child's father remains unclear, as does the timeline of their relationship. However, Linda embraced her role as a single mother, supported by her family. In 1989, at 41 years old, she relocated from North Carolina to Daytona Beach, Florida. Her new apartment was conveniently located near the bustling Broadway Bridge in downtown Daytona, and she lived independently. To support herself in this new environment, she secured a position as a waitress at the Chart House restaurant on South Beach Street, where her infectious positivity endeared her to colleagues. Although her earnings were modest, they sufficed for her needs. Linda had a passion for biking and frequently rode her blue and rust-colored Murray touring bike to work and other destinations. During this period, she began a romantic relationship with a man from New Smyrna Beach, approximately a 24-minute drive from Daytona Beach. Life was treating Linda well. She had a job, a partner, and a supportive network of family and friends. However, her contentment would soon be disrupted. On October 11, 1991, Linda marked 2 years of residence in Daytona Beach, a time that seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. That morning, around 1 a.m., she concluded her shift at the Chart House restaurant, feeling exhausted after a night of serving hungry patrons and eager to leave the establishment behind. She quickly changed into black leggings and a white top, bid farewell to her colleagues, and exited the restaurant with her backpack in tow. Linda was known for her attention to detail regarding her appearance, always ensuring she had a change of clothes and makeup ready for after her shift, which she typically carried in her backpack. She mounted her Murray touring bike and set off towards a bar on Broadway, known as Matey's Brig Bar. There, she intended to enjoy a drink or two with friends before heading home. Upon arriving at the bar, she dismounted her bike and secured it in a location she deemed safe. Once inside the lively establishment, she soon spotted her friends engaged in animated conversation at a table. She approached them and joined in, and the discussion quickly turned to Linda's romantic life, which she was eager to share. She revealed that she and her boyfriend had plans for a weekend getaway. From her backpack, she pulled out a map of Florida and began highlighting the destinations they intended to explore. Her friends were thrilled for her, unaware that Linda was not being entirely truthful. In reality, she and her boyfriend had scrapped the vacation plans, as he had opted for deep-sea fishing instead at the last moment. It remains unclear why Linda chose to mislead her friends about the trip. Around 2 a.m., she decided it was time to leave, said her goodbyes, and made her way out of the bar. She hopped back on her bike and pedaled towards home, stopping briefly at a nearby 7-Eleven to grab some chocolate milk and a donut. After making her purchase, she rode off, marking the last sighting of her. The next day, Linda failed to appear for her scheduled shift at work, which was highly unusual for her. Both her colleagues and employer found her absence concerning, as she typically informed someone or arranged for coverage on the rare occasions she missed work. Nevertheless, her fellow employees at the Chart House restaurant continued with their responsibilities diligently, anticipating her return the following day. However, when the next day arrived, Linda was still missing, prompting increased worry among her co-workers, who began to fear that something might be wrong. One of them took the initiative to contact Linda's sister, Joy Little, to share the troubling news. "We all sensed that something was off," Joy Little recounted, upon learning about her sister's absence. It was 3 days after Linda's unexplained disappearance that a friend and co-worker, Barbara Sheridan, officially reported her as missing. Additionally, Linda's landlord had also grown concerned after not seeing her for several days, and subsequently contacted the police to report her missing. Detectives in Daytona Beach were then tasked with locating the missing woman. Their first stop was her apartment, where they hoped to uncover any clues regarding her whereabouts. With the landlord's assistance, they entered Linda's residence and began their search. Everything appeared to be in order, and there were no signs of disturbance. Notably, her bed looked untouched, leading detectives to suspect that she had not returned home after her shift on October 11th. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, they were resolute in their commitment to uncover the truth. Following the completion of the search of her apartment, they proceeded to interrogate individuals in the upscale neighborhood, as well as her co-workers and circle of friends. It was during this meticulous process that they uncovered her visit to the Mateys Brig Bar and then the 7-Eleven store after her shift concluded. Yet her whereabouts remained an enigma. Their investigation also extended to her boyfriend, as there was a presumption that he might possess crucial information. However, even after an extensive interview, they remained no closer to unraveling the truth. There was no tangible evidence to connect him to Linda's sudden disappearance. The detectives were informed about the canceled vacation they had planned to celebrate their first anniversary. Furthermore, they stumbled upon the shocking revelation that the boyfriend was, in fact, a married man. Linda's family was left in disbelief upon learning this. They speculated that Linda might have been unaware of his marital status prior to embarking on a relationship with him. The police escalated their search efforts, even enlisting the assistance of the K-9 unit to aid in locating Linda. Every corner of the vicinity where she was last sighted was meticulously scrutinized. Bodies of water were meticulously searched, yet all endeavors proved to be fruitless. There was no trace of Linda or the bicycle she was last seen riding. It was as though she had vanished into thin air. The detectives were certain that a sinister event had transpired, but the absence of concrete evidence hindered them from establishing a connection to foul play. "There's no telling what transpired. We were at a loss," remarked Daytona Beach Police Deputy Chief Steve Perez. Linda's family implored the public for assistance in locating her. A substantial $5,000 reward was offered for any information regarding her whereabouts. Additionally, they disseminated 3,500 missing person flyers in the neighborhood. Linda was described as possessing brownish-red hair, captivating blue eyes, and an impressive height of 5 feet 11 inches. Her weight was recorded as between 150 and 180 pounds, along with details of the outfit she was last seen wearing. Flyers were distributed to truck drivers for wider dissemination across the country. Billboards carrying the same information were strategically placed throughout the city. As a final measure, Linda's family sought the help of a self-proclaimed psychic in their search for her. Tragically, the following year after Linda's disappearance, her father passed away, leaving the family to grapple with yet another loss. In 1996, Linda's family received a mysterious and startling phone call. The caller claimed to have encountered Linda in North Carolina, but refused to disclose his identity before abruptly ending the call. Despite numerous attempts, the man was never heard from again, leaving his true identity a mystery. Fast forward to 2011, 2 decades after Linda vanished, her family shared their ongoing search efforts with the local media. In an interview with the Daytona Beach News Journal, they expressed their unwavering hope of finding Linda one day. "I've never truly mourned her," Joy Little revealed. "I've dedicated myself to seeking answers to the unresolved questions," she continued. In 2016, a fresh team of detectives at the Daytona Police Department took over the case. However, despite their thorough investigation, the evidence failed to provide any concrete leads, leaving the detectives feeling disheartened. The case remained inactive for another 4 years until an unexpected turn of events in early January 2020. The Daytona Beach Police Department was contacted by an inspector from the Tomoka Correctional Institution, located in the same city, regarding an inmate who claimed to possess crucial information about an unsolved homicide. The individual at the center of this tragic narrative is a 51-year-old man named Michael Townsend, who is currently serving a life sentence for the brutal murder of Sherry Carmanto in 2007, a woman from Titusville. Townsend and Sherry, once childhood companions, rekindled their friendship after his release from prison in late 2006. His prior incarceration in 1994 was marked by a series of serious offenses, including robbery, grand theft, and burglary. Upon his release, Sherry graciously offered him temporary shelter with her family. However, during this brief stay, he committed the unthinkable, brutally beating her to death with a metal fence post and a hammer. He then callously concealed her lifeless body in the laundry room beneath a heap of clothes before fleeing the scene in her vehicle, which he later sold to an unsuspecting group for an undisclosed sum. It was not long before Sherry's body was discovered by her boyfriend, leading to Townsend's swift apprehension. During questioning, he confessed to the murder, claiming a misguided belief that their intimate relationship had led to him contracting AIDS from her, which he cited as his motive. However, an autopsy revealed that Sherry was free of the disease. This revelation piqued the detective's interest in an unsolved case involving Linda Little, a murder Townsend had previously mentioned. An interview was promptly arranged, during which he shockingly confessed to killing Linda in 1991. The detectives, taken aback, sought to confirm his claim by showing him a photograph of Linda, to which he unequivocally responded, "No doubt about it. No doubt." According to his account, he had been residing in Orlando but chose to venture to Daytona Beach to celebrate his birthday. He arrived in the city on October 10, 1991, and met Linda the next day at a bar in a resort hotel located at 701 South Atlantic Avenue in Daytona Beach. Detective Sergeant Dave Dinardi of the Daytona Beach Police Department remarked, "Regrettably, it seems their encounter was purely coincidental, occurring at an unfortunate time and place, leading Linda to meet someone who was not right for her. After sharing a few drinks, they departed the club in Michael's vehicle. During the drive, he inexplicably suggested that they take a shower, which upset Linda significantly. According to Townsend, she became agitated and began to yell at him. In response to her escalating outburst, Michael's frustration grew, and in a moment of rage, he struck her forcefully across the face with the back of his hand. Following this, he tragically proceeded to strangle her to death. Upon realizing the gravity of his actions, he quickly contemplated his next move. He drove to Camden County, Georgia, where he disposed of her body behind a movable waste container. Detectives were astonished by the detailed account he provided, which indicated that the case was finally resolved. In addition to Linda's murder, Michael confessed to having killed 2 women in Memphis, Tennessee. He explained that his decision to confess stemmed from finding God while in prison. Michael also attributed his violent tendencies to having been sexually abused by his stepfather and some family friends during his childhood. Daytona Beach Police Chief Chitwood noted, "He holds his mother and other women in his life accountable for not safeguarding him as a child, which led to his developing a deep-seated animosity towards women." When Linda's family was updated on the case's developments, they expressed relief and gratitude that Michael had come forward to admit his wrongdoing. Speaking at a press briefing, Wanda Hinson, Linda's sister, expressed her gratitude to Townsend for informing the family about the situation. She emphasized her forgiveness towards Townsend and her refusal to harbor negative emotions. Additionally, she hoped that Michael's confession would prompt other offenders to come forward. In December 2022, Michael pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Linda, and although the death penalty was not pursued, he received another life sentence. State Attorney R.J. Lariza expressed satisfaction in solving the cold case and hoped the plea would bring peace to the family. Despite efforts to locate Linda's remains, they remain undiscovered, leaving the mystery of her body unresolved.